and I took some names, and Emma took some names, so we'll just kind of go back and forth here.
If you want to address a question to a specific individual or a philosophy, you can do that. We're going to give the panelists 2 minutes to answer the questions. If you want to address the question to all of the panelists, we don't have time for all 6 members, so we'll take one individual from each philosophy to address that question. So please let us know who you want to ask this question to, and then each panelist will have 2 minutes to answer the question.
So I have Julia.
I didn't know I was going to be first.
You're first, Julia.
Whoa! Okay, I didn't know I was going to be first. It's a little pressure, that's cool. So I wanted to ask the panelists to address I heard in general terms about Workers' Party or whatever, but for this election, what are you saying? What do you think people should do for this election this year?
Okay, so let's get maybe 2 panelists that would like to answer that.
Oh no, 1 panelist each, right? We want to have one panelist from 3 each philosophies, so that every philosophy gets represented.
And why?
Right, and why? Okay. So where should we start?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay. 2 minutes.
As far as the question about political, as far as I'm concerned, the bourgeois parties, right? They serve the interest of the capitalists, and I want to say that Obama is the most dangerous of all. And I want to say that capitalism is in crisis, and the ruling class in this country is going to take this country to war, whether it's going to be a major confrontation with Iran or eventually China. And these presidents, they're basically fighting, there's a dispute between the ruling class, which way to go. But ultimately, both parties are war parties as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, 2 minutes.
So you'll notice I didn't say anything particularly about a workers' party. There's also an increasingly almost a class of its own of unemployed people in this country. Growing youth, a youth disenfranchisement where all the jobs that were there for the youth are now being done. Single mothers that are 40 years old, they're taking the jobs at Taco Bell and stuff like that. So in terms of voting in the institutionalized political process right now, I'm more taking the side of the already disenfranchised, the people that already don't vote. If you know, about more than half of people in this country already don't vote. Whether you want to call it apathy, I think that's part of the dominant narrative, saying people are apathetic, people don't want to get out there. But a lot of people think it's corrupt. A lot of people do not want to participate in the system already. So those people are more my audience, reaching out to the people that already do not feel represented by the system. I always felt that Occupy happened because people were disenfranchised and felt that representative democracy wasn't working for them. So what happens is they say you need to vote, and everywhere you go it tells you that you need to vote, right? And then they tell you, okay, you don't want to legitimize the system, you don't want to participate, but you have to vote for these local initiatives. Now, I think that at this point, any vote is a vote for war. Any vote is a vote for capitalism, because it is enabling the dominant narrative. And even if nobody voted, the election machine would still continue, and then this country would show how illegitimate it actually is. And then people would be forced to confront what's actually happening here. So I'm actually telling people not to vote, and I'm getting a lot of criticism for it, because people are telling me that I'm disenfranchising people because I'm questioning the dominant narrative, even though when I go to an ATM, they tell me to vote and use my voice, right? So that is the common, repeated thing that's been internalized, and if you go against that, they'll call you racist, they'll call you sexist, they say women and people died for that right. But the thing is, rights shouldn't be granted to you to participate in this disconnected process, because you're actually not voting for war. You're voting for a representative that may or may not know you, or know your area, or anything like that.
I think we're the socialists. Yeah, okay. Very similar, but it's not great.
Just a real quick point of process, and this isn't a thing. I just want to point out that after this meeting, there's going to be a group discussion on voting, where this can really be ripped open. So I just wanted to point to what we're talking about. Sorry.
Check your program information.
Good information.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. She didn't tell me she was going to ask that question. But anyway, what I'm saying is that, like, in terms of what we should do, I agree with what a lot of has already been said. Do not put your fate into this system or try to convince people that this system is going to work. It just continues to repeat the narrative of there's a good cop and the bad cop, and the good cop is going to be nice to you, but the good cop's only nice to you because that's going to get them what they want, because they want you to snitch or they want you to rat out in your community. So what we need to be doing is organizing people, not just I say workers' party because I believe, as Marx did believe, is that the workers are the ones who control the means of production, and so when they stop working, that is a incredible blow to the system. But that doesn't include what's called the lumpen proletariat and other people who are not working, or the army of the unemployed. And the importance of that is just bringing people together on principles that they agree on and that they believe, which is union job for all, no one is illegal, free public education for everyone, you know, abortions free, safe, and legal as well, disability rights for all people, based on principles, not this candidate, one person did some bad stuff or they made some 43% statistic. I already know he's a fool. If he says 43% or if it's 39% and he's wrong, it's irrelevant to me. He's going to be in the interest of the ruling party and against our interests as working people and as oppressed people. So we need to organize based on principle, based on the things that we believe, not just necessarily on candidates. And that's what I want to be doing on election day, is organizing people in my community, because the enemies are going to be there whether or not whatever happens, they'll change form. But in terms of the empowerment and how important it is for us to empower the community, that's going to be there, the capitalists there or not. We need to empower our community, so even if we do win in this society, we're the ones who are making it the society that we want.
Okay, next on stack for questions is Kay Haas.
Okay, yeah. I have to preface my question with a little statement, because that statement is going to influence. Okay. I speak against the Mass Communist Party as a formal organization. The Paris Commune organized the worker into a lot of workers' council, not a party. Marx said its greatest accomplishment was the fact that it actually happened. It was a non-state. After the Chinese Revolution, there were millions in the Chinese Communist Party, millions. But China was ruled by the Central Committee of the Communist Party with one man at its head. In my view, having a party rule is not horizontalism, but it will be top-down. Russian Bolshevik Party took power under Lenin, and it, because there was a party, it allowed Stalin to maneuver his way into the party and become a single dictator, very ruthless.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
can we move on to the question, please?
Okay, my question is, how would you organize either a workers' party or a communist party so that it doesn't become top-down, just like the capitalist system?
Do you want to ask all of them?
No,
the
I want to
questions?
ask him
Yeah, he's
and
just
her.
confused. Yeah.
So we're not going to exclude any individual philosophy. So we're going to have all three philosophies answer the question anyway. Is that okay?
Yeah, but the
No, that's fine. Yeah, the anarchist answer would be short, which they wouldn't organize one. So.
yes.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
That's a very important question, and it's the question is I hate to say it's the $1 million question, right? It's the $1 million question about how do you guarantee that a mass party corrects those historical mistakes that happened in the past, from the Bolshevik to Mao to all of that. And the best answer that I can give at this time is that when the masses truly embrace dialectical materialism, when the masses truly embrace communist philosophy, any sidetracking by a party, the masses will correct it. So what I'm talking about of truly empowering the masses, in which they are deciding, they're participating in a mass way, not, Lenin had this division of the party and the masses. I reject that formulation. My formulation is that it has to be a mass party, international. And that's the best answer that I can give at this time.
I would say that part of it comes from also not just being a socialist, but also a Trotskyist, but is that positions being recallable at any time. People need to be held accountable, because you're right about that. Like, people have taken power and they manipulated the movement, they capitulated to the capitalists. Stalinists did that particularly as well. But they capitulated to the capitalists in order to make gains for themselves. But people cannot be paid so that they're, like, if they're a government official, they're paid more than someone else who's another working person and another section of the proletariat. Let's say they're a seamstress or a nurse or someone like that. And that way, there's no personal gain in being part of that control or management. Because you won't get anything else by doing that. And also, if you do start to act up and you do start to do things that are against the interests of the majority and against the people in the proletariat, you're out of there. You're recallable at any time, especially those people who are in positions of power. And it's through a direct democracy, so it's always going to be based on the majority. Not one person who can market, not one person who can make it seem, and shade information like they do right now, omitting certain information from the people. But positions where it's all equal pay, and where a position is always recallable, so that if people start acting a fool, we held them accountable for, and we put people in office and in positions of power and management that we know we could trust, based on their actions. Based on their actions.
There's stacks for questions if you'd like to get on stack.
So Michael?
Okay, it's a two-part question. The first part is, how can you talk about anarchism or socialism or communism or revolution without addressing the fact that the United States has 5% of the world's population, uses 35% of the world's resources, has 25% of the world's prisoners, internally has colonized Puerto Rico and all the indigenous people, and Hawaii and Alaska and African people, and I'm saying you haven't discussed that, anybody. The second part of the question is, there have been anarchist organizations and Marxist socialist parties and since the 1840s, and communist parties since the early 1900s. And how do you account for the fact that we have not yet been able to win a fundamental struggle? And what have you learned from the failures that we will be able to win going forward, addressing those other realities that I just mentioned?
Who do you want to ask that question to? All of them, or do you have a specific person in mind?
All three friends, whatever.
Okay. Do you want to speak for the? Okay, Kimberly.